Now I'm live. Hello. Hello. You spend so long waiting for this thing to connect and you just sit there looking at yourself. Anyway, good afternoon. It's lunchtime here in London and I thought I'll do a Ask Me Anything session. And how it normally works is it's just half an hour of me on here and hopefully people will join. And if not, then I'd see Philip's here. Hi, Philip. And if no one joins, it will just be me chatting for half an hour, telling you what I've been up to. And I feel like I haven't done one of these for a while. I think the last time I did a live, I think I did it with Patricia Marquez, which was quite a while ago. It might have been the end of June, early July. And the reason why that's been is because I've been busy. Busy. I think June I was recovering from a surgical procedure. So I was recovering from that. And then once I got over that, I had events to do. So, summer in the book world is basically festival season. So I was doing loads of events. The last event I did was we say Harrogate, that's like the shorthand for it, but the Feakston So Peculiar Crime Writing Festival. That was my last event. That was the middle of July, maybe about 3 weeks ago. And my book, The Cure List, that was longlisted for the Crime Novel of the Year award. Didn't make the shortlist, but it was one of those occasions where I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I was happy to be nominated, happy to be longlisted. So that was my last event of the summer. But it didn't mean I stopped work because I still had to do my copy edits for book 4 in my Inspector Angelica Henley series. So once I did that last event in July, I think it was like 17th to the 19th or 20th of July, I was basically like head down getting my copy edits done. And copy edits are such a strange thing because when you get them, when your editor says, right, your copy edit's on your way, it means that you're nearly there. So it's the last stage after that will be going through the proof copy of the book, and then it will go to the printers. So it's like the penultimate stage. And you've read your book so many times. If everyone is joining me, hi, and feel free to ask me anything you want about writing, publishing, whatever craziness is going on in the world. You've got me for half an hour. And maybe the next time I do this, I might do it later on in the day. But yeah, so I got my copy edits back and I was like, oh, more work. Because you've read your book so many times. You've gone through your book so many times. And with this book, which is called The Shadow Carver, out on the 26th of February, 2026, I was trying to work out when I completed the first draft. And I think I completed the first draft, I think it might have been last July. It's like nearly a year ago. I wrote, and I say the first draft, but that's the draft that I then give my editor. But within the time it took me to write the book, and I think I wrote The Shadow Carver quite quickly. I think I wrote it in about 6 months. But within those 6 months, maybe 6 to 7 months, but within those 6 to 7 months, I would have done my first draft for myself. And now the trick I do for myself, before I just used to write a first draft from beginning right through to the end. But now what I do, I write my first draft, but I stop at Act 3. So the third act, I stop, and then I go back and I start the rewrite. Because then once I then start doing the rewrite, I kind of know exactly how I want the last third of the book to finish. So what my editor gets, you might as well call that like the second draft. It's been rewritten. Second or third draft, actually. So it's been rewritten. And then, so you get that draft. Then that draft came back. And then the last, year? Is it a year? I don't know. The last 8 months has been doing developmental editing, structural edits. And then what happened with this one, I got my line edits and my copy edits all together. So I've gone through this book so many times. Like I always say, it's not like you get sick of it, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of reading your words over and over and over again and changing things and changing plots and changing character arcs and, responding to questions. So when you get your copy edits, you're at that final stage. And the copy editor, what they're supposed to be doing, they're supposed to be basically, it's checking for any errors. So it could be like errors that you might have made. For example, you said a character had blue eyes on page 15, but on page 48, you said they've got green eyes, or you've given the character a different name. So they're supposed to be checking basically for continuity. And then they help you like clarify. Like I had a really good copy editor before, the Jigsaw Man, who would like put little comments to say, yeah, you don't get these sort of flowers blooming in September. These flowers were blooming May. So you're like, oh, didn't even realise that. So that's their job. Continuity, corrections, making sure things flow. So with your copy edit, it's a lot of going through it and responding to questions. And then actually thinking, yeah, you might have a point. So I did my copy edits, and I did my copy edits in about 10 days. If that, I think I did them. I can do them quickly. So I got my copy edits done. Delivered those on the 28th of July. So what was that? A week ago? Was that a week ago? Week and a half ago? I don't know. But now I am free. So I'm doing my Substack live because I am free. I am not doing any writing. I'm taking August off, or the rest of August off. I'm not starting my next book until September. I've already planned my book. So I already planned the book that I'm going to be writing. I've already got my outline and stuff because that's just how I work. I've got my outline done. And so I'll be starting that in September. But for now, I'm free. And a couple of days ago, I asked on my notes section, it's like, what's the biggest length of time, if that makes sense? Well, how long have you taken? How much of a break have you taken between finishing one book and starting another? Because even though I'm on a break, I don't know if this happens for anyone else, like you kind of get like this itch, like you feel like you need to be doing something, you need to be writing something. And it's very hard to tell yourself like, no, because you've been doing a lot. Writing a book is not easy. I always describe writing a book, especially writing that very first draft. I describe it, the feeling at the end is the same feeling I'd have when I'd finished a trial. So when I've been finished a trial, doing a trial, it's whether it's 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, doing a trial is intense. And even though you're not physically doing anything, you're literally standing up and sitting down again. But it's a lot of mental work. And at the end of a trial, I'll be absolutely exhausted. Like I'm brain dead, I'm physically tired, I just want to sleep. And that's how I feel when I finish writing the first draft of my book. You're just exhausted. And you have to keep reminding yourself that you need to take a break, and you should take a break. And I think if you're a writer, or even if you're if you're self-employed, it's very hard to give yourself time off because you feel like I need to be doing something because you need to be earning money, basically. But you need to be kind to yourself. So I'm trying to be kind to myself. It's August. So I'm just reading, doing a lot of reading. So that's been nice because the last couple of months I was judging a lot of competitions also. So I judged a competition with my agency, AM Heath, and Orion Books. So I think I read, I can't remember, 4 or 5 submissions. So the openings of, 4 or 5 submissions I read for that. Then I was a judge for the McDermott Debut Award at Theakston's Obtula Crime Writing Festival. And I had to read 6 books for that. And it's very different because, when you're just reading a book for yourself, you'd be leisurely about it. But when you're reading it to judge a prize, you just take a completely different approach for it. And then I was moderating a panel, chairing a panel, so I had to read 6 books for that. So it wasn't they're books I would have read probably if I'd chosen for myself, but it's different when you're being told to read all these books to prepare. Right, Philip's got a question. Philip says, I hate asking this. Don't hate, it's fine. I hate asking this because it feels like a where do your ideas come from type of question. But how do you actually go through that outlining process to gear up to the first draft? I've been a pantser in the past and it caused nothing but headaches, but so I appreciate your insight. I tried pantsing, to be blunt, I tried it. And every time I tried it, I would always get to about 20,000, 30,000 words. And then I'll just be, I can't make this story move. I don't know what's happening next. So for me, how I go through the outlining process, it starts from the moment when I give ideas to my agent. And so I'll go to my agent. These are the ideas that I want to be working on next. So I'll give him an outline, and I write long. I say long outline. I'll give him like an outline that's about 6 pages long. And it's just me just summarizing, just giving a general outline for what the story will be. Um, and once I've got that outline, I then use that as the basis to then I then call it like a chapter outline for the first draft of the book. So if you I don't know if did I mention it earlier? I think I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, I did. I very much like a strong believer in the 3-act structure. Like that's what I follow, and I normally have to deliver like a draft of about 100,000 words. That's what I'm contracted to deliver, 100,000 words. So I break down my draft into 30 sections. This is just how I do it. I break down my draft into 30 sections, split those 30 sections into the acts. So Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and Act 3 is always going to be the shorter. And then for each section, so let's say for Act 1, it'll probably be that's going to be the shortest one, maybe be about 10, 15 sections. And I'll just do like a 2-line summary of what I want to happen. And it's not a chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 3, chapter 4 sort of thing. It's just like section 1, section 2, section 3. This is what I want to happen. And then section 2, the Act 2 will be the larger part of it. So maybe that might be, well, I'm just saying like 35 sections. And again, I'll just do a summary of what I want how the story to progress. So that's how I outline for the first draft. But what I always say is that I don't always necessarily follow it like to the letter. I use it as a safety net. So sometimes, like I could be writing, and when you're just writing, it's organic, you just write. And I may find that the way the story's progressed, that I might have jumped sections, or certain sections may move around. Or if I get a bit stuck and I'm not sure what I want to happen next, I then go back to the outline. So that's how I outline for that very, very first draft. So I don't put any pressure on myself. So I don't say I need to stick to it like 100%, because you should be okay. You should be comfortable with just like going off piste, which is what I do. And I always say, like, sometimes, I've said it a million times, like sometimes subplots just come out of thin air because of just how the story is naturally progressing as you start to write. But if you feel like you get at that, because I know Philip said yes, if you feel like you get to that 20,000, 30,000 word stage and you're like, I don't know what happens next, then it's a good idea. I think like doing an outline, just a general outline, is the way to go. But everyone's different. Like I know I've seen some like my friends' outlines, and it's literally is a detailed mini synopsis for each section of their first draft, and they rigidly stick to it. And I've seen other friends writers outlines where it's just a general, this is what's going to happen in the first act, second act, third act. And then some people are pantsers. That's just how they don't. I've heard some people say they don't like knowing what happens at the end, because they feel like they have to, like they're stuck on that road. They just have to get to that ending. And I don't feel that's necessarily the case. I think you're always, it's your work, it's your story, it's your characters. I think you're always free to move as and when and how you want to when you're doing your draft. So that's how I do my first draft. And then when I've finished my first draft, I said, and that draft's just for me. But I said, because I said in the beginning, I've changed how I write that first draft now. Because also your first draft is just to get the story down. So I don't get hung up, because I changed names in the first draft. I remember with The Binding Room, which was like my second Henley novel, I changed who the killer was. In my head, I had it planned a certain way and I knew how it was going to end with my first draft. But as I started writing and I introduced this character, and I thought, nah, I feel like this is going to be the person, because I feel like this will be like a nice twist. Even though I wasn't focused and fixated on the twist, but I was like, okay, actually, I think this person might be the one who done it. So it changes. And then I said, I don't write I don't write all the way to the end now with my first draft. I just write to the end of Act 2 because Act 3 is always short. Act 3 is everything's coming to the end and it's about to finish. So I feel like, okay, once I get to the rewrite and I've rewritten the first act and the second act, I've got a much clearer idea of what Act 3 is going to be and how it's going to end. And then what should happen next I keep saying that for my clients. It's not clients, for my characters. Hannah said, "Hi, Hannah." You said, "I've read half of the McDermott list and so far they've all been excellent." They were so good. It's so hard because, you love reading books. So you're just like, I'm just going to read the books. But you have to judge it. And you have to ask yourself questions at the end of it. It's like, okay, would I call up a friend and say, this is the book you need to read? Is this the book I'd want to push in their hands? You ask yourself, am I convinced by the story? They're like, have they taken me along on this ride? And I feel fulfilled at the end of it. There's so many questions. Is it different? Are they doing something different? Are they adding something new to the genre? So there's so many questions you have to ask. But I'll carry on. You said, interested in your perspective on series writing. How far ahead do you have Angelica's arc planned for the series? Do you take it book by book? I think I take it 2 books by 2 books. So I'll explain in detail. So with my book deals, I have 2 book deals. So my first 2 book deal was for the Jigsaw Man and the Binding Room. Next 2 book deal was, the Kill List and the Shadow Carver. So, and I planned for the next 2 books. So I'm always 2 books ahead. So for Henley, I've planned up to, so book 4 is coming out in February. So I can't add. I've planned up to book 6, the end of book 6. So I don't know, like, in detail what's going to happen with her arc. Like, I can't say to her in book 7 she's going to break up with her husband and she's going to leave the SCU. Like, I can't tell you that. Like, I have a general idea. I know what the story's going to be. I know what the investigation's going to be. So that's one thing, like, I'm 100% clear on. I know exactly what the investigation's going to be. But their individual story arcs, the character arcs, I don't really know until I start writing. And then also, because it changes as well. So I may have an idea of how it's going to go when I do the outline. But once I start writing, I'm thinking, no, this won't work necessarily. But I do know I am 2 books ahead for Angelica. But I do know what's going to happen to certain characters. So, because my editors made suggestions and I've been like against it. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And then I'm like, actually, I might do something else. So it's like, as I go along, like, ideas pop into my head. I'm like, okay, I might do this to that character. I might do that to that character. I might put them in this situation, in this scenario. Like, when I was writing book 4, I knew Pelletier, who is the boss. I knew he had siblings, but I didn't know their names. I didn't know what they did. I think I knew he had a sister, because I think I mentioned the sister. But when I was writing this book 4, I gave him a brother. He's got an older brother. And I wrote a whole scene, but then I took it out. But, you learn more. You learn about your characters with each book. You always learn more. But in terms of my perspective on series writing, I don't think what makes it easy, I say easy, is that you know the world you've built. So there's comfort in that. So when I start a new book, when I start a new Angelica book, I know the world. Like, I know her family unit. I know her team. I know what the serial crimes unit looks like. I know, in my head, I know what the office building looks like, and I can see where they're all sitting in the office. So I know the world, so there's comfort in that. But then what I'm always conscious of is not being repetitive. And what I mean by that is that with a series, and especially with a police procedural, I said there's always going to be certain beats that you're always going to hit. So for me, I'll always say there's always going to be an arrest. There's always going to be like a chase scene. There's always going to be red herrings. There's always going to be an interview scene. So if all of my books, you will see there's always a police interview scene. Sometimes there's more than one. And I'm always thinking, I don't want it to just be like just the same old. Like, oh, here's another interview. You give them a caution, and then answering some questions. So in my head, I'm always trying to think of ways to make it feel fresh and feel new. So for me, that's where the challenge is. So with writing a procedural and writing a series, is that making sure the things that you expect to see, that they don't just feel like you've just reheated them in a microwave. So that for me is always the challenge. Like, how can I make this interview scene? How can I make it different? And for me as well, because, my background is a criminal lawyer and I've lost count on the amount of times I've sat in police interview rooms doing interviews. Um, I always try and think back to my previous experiences and how different each interview was. For example, I try and remember what my clients were doing, how the police officers were responding, if there was a difference in the tone of interview, if it was taking place at 1 o'clock in the morning or in comparison to an interview that's taken place at 9 o'clock in the morning. Did I feel different because I'd been in court all day and I was now doing a police station interview at 7 o'clock in the evening after being caught? Did I approach it differently in comparison to me leaving my house at 9 and doing an interview at 11 o'clock in the morning? So I try and think back to all my real life experiences. But yeah, so that's the approach I take for writing a series. But I do try and focus on the investigation. I'm like, okay, what is this case about? What is this crime about? And what is it about this crime that makes it special enough for the serial crimes unit? What makes it different? How are my team going? I say my team. How are my characters going to respond to this crime? So I really focus on the crime and how it will push the characters. So, but what I'm finding now, because I'm going to be writing a standalone between me and you before it's officially announced, I'm going to be writing a standalone next. And I'd already planned it because I said I would always give a proposal to my agent first and say, this is what I'm going to do. Oh, you're welcome, Hannah. So I've already planned my standalone. But even at the planning stage, I was struggling. And the reason why I was struggling is because I've been writing series since 2018. No, longer than that. 2017. That's how long. So there's a helicopter going by, trying to work out, but it's a police helicopter. Right. So I've been writing Henley since end of 2016, 2017. So it's like 8 years I've been working on her. 8, 9 years. And as I said, I know the characters, I know the world. So to start something new, even at the planning stage, I sat in front of my computer and I was like, how do I do this? Like, how do I tell a story? Like, who are these characters? Because I don't know these characters. Like, I don't know where they at the time. I don't know where they live. I don't know what they like and what they don't like. I don't know what their flaws are. So I was finding it really hard trying to, discovering my characters and then trying to work out how I would plan out the story for them. Because it has to be, this is my view of it, because it's a standalone, it has to be a fully contained story. I can't leave any loose ends hanging around, because with my series, I can kind of leave a loose end because I can leave them as hooks. So this is a hook to keep you reading so you pick up the next book when it's published. So I can kind of get away with doing that with my series, but with a standalone, I can't do that. I can't leave loose ends hanging around. So I found it really hard just planning it and working on the outline. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But then I did it, got through it, had a word with myself. I had to tell myself, Nadine, it's just another investigation. With this standalone, it's just, it is an investigation, but on the other side. So it's not a police procedural. So it's the other side of it. And how, individuals, civilians, normal people, how they deal with it, especially if they're the one being accused. So that's kind of like where we're going with the standalone. But I find it a struggle. I don't know anyone, especially when I've done my interviews for my podcast, I don't think I've spoken to any author who says it gets easier with each book. Every book, they sit down and they're like, what? How do I do this? Like, how do I write a book? And to be honest, I think that's a good thing to have. I think it's good to feel that way when you start a book, because I think it keeps you motivated, keeps you invested. I think if you just feel like, yes, it's going to be easy, I've done this 5 times before. I think if you think that way, I think you probably get a bit lazy, maybe, a little bit lackadaisical. Hannah said, had a word with yourself. You do. I have to have so many words with myself. So especially when I was planning out this new book, I had to say, you can write a book. You have done this before. Just take it back down to basics, which is why I always go back to, I'll show you. I'll go back, even though I said I'm on a break at the moment, I'm still planning on it. I've still got ideas whirling away in my head. I thought I'd get them out. But this is how basic I am. Like, look, I print out a free act. This is what I do. I print out a free act, the graph, the story, the free act structure graph. I print it out and then I just do my notes along each section. Say, this is what I'm going to do for act 1. This is what I'm going to do for act 2. Make sure I follow it all along. So normally it would say, you've got an inciting incident around this point. I can't remember what happens there. And then this is the climax and you get down to the end, you get the resolution. Oh yeah, see, look. Set up, confrontation, resolution. So I use that and I normally I use a pencil and I just scribble down how I feel my story is going to go. So you just say, I had to take it back to basics, and that's how I take it back to basics. This is how I have a word with myself. So even though I've said I've written more than 4 books, I've written 4 Henley books. I've written The Sisters, so contemporary fiction. So that's 5. I wrote another book, which I was in the process of rewriting, but I didn't get a chance to finish it because I then started my creative writing masters and wrote The Jigsaw Man. And then I wrote another book way before then, which will probably, it will never see the light of day. I'm not saying it's rubbish. It's just, I always say I had no business sending that book out to anybody. Like I sent it out to agents and I got rejections. And when I look back, I'm like, I'm not surprised you got rejections. So I've written what? 6, 7 books. I always feel like when I'm starting a new one, I have to go back to basics. So that's what I use. I like the free act. I really like the free act structure. And a really good book that I always recommend, if I was upstairs, I'd show it to you. If you're into planning your books and you like following that sort of structure for your plans, Stealing Hollywood. And I can't remember Alexandra's last name, but she's on Substack as well. And but it's so good. And it's still from Hollywood. So it takes Hollywood movies and it breaks them down. Breaks down the free act structure, looks at characters, and then how you can apply that to writing your own novel. And I always go back to that book, always go back to it. If you see my copy, it's like highlighted to death because I always go back to it when I'm not struggling, but when I'm like, you need a bit of help. You need that bit of a boost, but you always have a word of yourself. Always have a word with someone else. So that's what I always say. Like, find your tribe, find your writer friends, and just say to them, look, take a look at this. Do you think this would work? I did that a few weeks ago with something else I've been working on. And I've been working on it on and off for literally for about 2 years. But I have to keep stopping because I have Henley books to write. And because I've been working on and off on it, I kind of lost sight of it. So I've sent the first 5 chapters to a couple of writer friends of mine, just for them, just have someone else look at it. And just to tell me if I'm on the right track, if they think the characters work, if they're invested in the story. Thankfully, one of my friends who got back to me said, yes, he's invested and he wants more. And I'm like, good, okay. It's in safe hands. Any other questions? Because I always say half an hour, but I'll do 10 more minutes of my Substack live, which just turned into, this is what I've been doing, which is not much. I'm going to be reading at the moment. Oh, because I'm on a break right now. So I'll start writing book 5 in September. But because I write crime fiction, I couldn't read crime fiction. I had to take a break from it completely. So once I finished my copy edits, so basically I've gone into my rom-com era. So I think I read 3 or 4 Abby Jimenez books. Yeah, I think I read 3 or 4. I think 3 of those in a row I read. Now I've gone back to crime. So I'm reading S.A. Cosby's King of Ashes, finally. because I wanted to read it when I didn't have nothing else going on in my writing life. And then these are the books I've got. Always no, okay. These are the books that are just literally they dropped through my letterbox the last couple of weeks. So I got Kingsley Pearson's Flat 401. This is a debut. So I'm going to read that and hopefully he'll be on my podcast. Sam Blake, Your Every Move. So these are all thrillers. And then so that's a proof, early copy. It's not out until January. Then I got a copy of Sarah Hillary's book, The Drowning Place. I love Sarah Hillary. She was my mentor when I was doing my creative writing and MA. And she gave the best advice, always had absolute faith in me and confidence that I will do what I'm doing now. So got a lot of time for Sarah Hillary. So this is her new police procedural series. So that's out in April. So I'm going to read that. And then I've got Laura Shepherd Robinson, Art of the Lie. I'm going to read this, the finished copy. So I'm going to read that too. Right. Philip says, for the conversation, this is the podcast, what are some of the biggest learnings you have had over the last few years making a podcast? I mean, personally, on like a professional admin side of doing the podcast, on an admin side, it's like the best thing I did was use Calendly, which is just the booking system. I use that in order to book my recording slots. And also I learned I cannot record more than 2 interviews in a week. 2 is my max. When I first started up, because I need time to do other things, because it does take up a lot of time. Because, the straightforward part of doing the interview is doing the actual interview, doing the conversation. But prior to that, I have to do the prep. I have to set up all the admin, all the emails, booking the recording slots, letting the guests know where the recording is going to take place. And afterwards, I'm doing the editing also, and then doing all the social media. So that takes that takes up time. But I think the most important thing I've learned, and I think it's in order to have a successful podcast, is to be authentic to myself. I don't think it would have worked at all if I was trying to imitate anyone else. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to imitate other podcast hosts. I need to be true to myself and authentic to myself. And I'm a chatter and I like to have conversations. And I know personally how I feel when sometimes you get certain questions are asked of you in an interview. And I didn't want to do that. I just wanted it to feel like a conversation. So, like on an admin side, it's just that making sure I have time to get my guests in, prepare, and then make it authentic. And I always tell my guests before we start recording, I always remind them how it's going to go. And it's fine that it goes off on a tangent, because it always goes off on a tangent. I always say the tangents are fun. But I think the biggest learning, like professionally, that I've learned from my guests, and I've been doing a mini series on my actual Substacks about, I've called it Behind the Mics, the lessons learned from doing my podcast. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, especially with this season, so the season that's just finished, is that I think the writers who have been like successful, and not only successful, but are just consistent with just putting out books, like they have a clear plan for themselves and a clear strategic plan for themselves as an author, and where they want their career to do and what they want and what they want from each book. So I remember there's an interview. This is an interview I did last season, season 2, with Ruth Ware, who's amazing Sunday Times, New York Times best-selling author. Netflix adapting her book. She's fantastic. And she said when she wrote The Woman in Cabin, is it Woman in Cabin 10? That's the one that's the one that's been adapted into a series with Keira Knightley. She said she threw everything at it. Like she threw everything at it. And that always sticks in my mind as well. So another thing I think I've learned is like, don't hold back with your writing. Definitely, like, you need to be brave. Because I think sometimes when you're writing, you can question yourself. Is this the right thing? Is this the right character? Is this on trend? Will people want to be reading this book when it eventually comes out in, I say 2 years, that's normally how it works. Let's say a year to 18 months to 2 years. And you just have to be brave and just say, no, this is a story I want to write. This is the story I'm invested in. And I'm just going to stick with it. And try not to second guess like every decision you make. So I think that's been one of the biggest learnings, like having a clear plan, being brave, Yeah. Telling your inner critic to shut up. That's what you need to do. Because your inner critic is very loud. Very, very loud. Because even like with my books, when I'm writing the scenes that always comes that, when people come back to me, when the readers come back to me, they always talk about how gruesome and graphic they are. And I don't think they are. I never do. I'm very detached from it. But I'm detached from the graphicness from it. And I think I automatically go into criminal lawyer mode. Like I don't get emotionally attached to it. But there have been times when I've done a scene and I've looked back at it and I'm like, no, like you can go a little bit further, like you can push it further. And at the end of the day, if I'm going too far, that's what my editor will come back to me and go like, no, I think this might be a little bit too much. But she's never said that. She's always asked for more. But it is silencing that inner critic. The inner critic is loud, they're relentless, they're annoying. And this is why you have to find another inner critic to tell them to shut up. So it's not easy. But yeah, I think those are the biggest things I've learned. Being brave, having a strategy. Always, if you do get stuck, like I said, having the right people around you who you can go to, just to ask for advice. Like read over some of your work if you're wondering if it's going the right way. Another thing that I've learned is that, and it's still a bit of a debate. It's like a lot of writers that I've spoken to on my podcast don't believe in writer's block. And in the beginning, I was like, yeah, no, writer's block is a thing. If you're blocked, you're blocked. And I think from having these conversations and actually from my own experiences, I don't think it's not writer's block. What it is that you've reached a point in your story and something's not working. And because something's not working, or because, like I say, I'm very much a planner. So if I haven't planned and I'm now stuck because I don't know where the story's going. And that's what it is. You're not blocked. You're just that you've reached a junction and you have no idea which direction to go. And you just need clarification. And so the best thing to do when you get to those points, which I said, for most of the guests I've spoken to, no one believes in it's not writer's block. They've just reached a point where something's not working. And when that happens, the best thing you can do, and what everyone's always seemed to have done, is just stepped away from it. Whether they stepped away from it for like an hour or 2 days. I think some authors have stepped away for like 2-3 months and then they've gone back to the book. And they, then because they've stepped away, they've given themselves space and taken away the pressure, worked out what the problem is, and then they've gone back. Other writers have just jumped. I can't do this because my brain's very linear and it will just like freeze if I jump ahead. But other writers have jumped ahead. So they skipped they've skipped 3 chapters and gone on to the next section of their book. I couldn't do that because my brain would be like, no, we have a road. We need to follow the road. But yeah, so it's not writer's block. It's like, it's a pause. It's you've reached the traffic lights and it's like you're going through the traffic lights and you're stuck at amber because something's not working. It's like, we're just pausing here. Let's work out what's not working and then move ahead. So what else have I, there was something else I was going to say that I've learned. I think I spoke about imposter syndrome. I don't think the imposter syndrome ever really goes away. Philip, you're in the East Coast. This is why I said I'm going to do these later because I keep forgetting that I've got subscribers on here who are not in the UK because it's British summertime right now. So it's 12:39 in the afternoon, and I think it's 7:39 on the East Coast. So I'll do them later, so everyone's not waking up early while they're watching me over drinking their coffee. But you're welcome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Ask me anything. What else have I learned from the podcast? I think, yeah, having a strategy. That's definitely one of the things. So being brave, writer's block is not a thing, even though I'm sure there are some people who will disagree. And just also, I think the most important thing is just writing the story that you want to write. Definitely. Like, don't feel pressured into writing, because remember there was a time when every book was called A Girl on Something because you had a girl on a train and it did so well. And all these books were some woman, whatever, in some kind of similar situation. And so people probably felt a lot of pressure. They need to write a book like that. But no, just write the book that you want to write. Like S.J. Watson, who's on Substack, he wrote Before I Go to Sleep. He wasn't writing to trends. And his book became an amazing bestseller, became a movie. So yeah, just write the story that you want to write. What else? I'm trying to think what else I've learned from my podcast. It's been I enjoy my podcast. The guests have been really, really good. I've had really good guests on my podcast, and I've always learned, this is the one thing. I mean, it's just something that's just carried throughout the podcast, is that reinforcing to, anyone writing, regardless whatever stage you're at, it's just reinforcing the fact that publishing is a business. And, if you listen to the podcast regularly, you'll always hear me say, prior to becoming published, you look through your view of publishing is through your Hallmark TV movie glasses, in the sense that if you ever watch a Hallmark TV movie and it involves a writer, they've got an editor, they just barge into their editor's office whenever they feel like it. They get taken. I mean, I've been taken out for lunch, but, they get sent to a retreat to work on the final chapter of their book, and it's all paid for. So it's a very romanticized view of it. And you can kind of go into publishing with that view, and then you very quickly find out that it's not the case. So through my podcast, I think one thing's become abundantly clear is that it benefits you if you recognize very early on that this is a business, and you recognize where you sit, your role as a writer, where you sit in the business, and being clear about what you want, what your expectations are, and what your publishers are going to deliver. Not what they say they're going to deliver, because what they say they're going to deliver is completely different to what they do finally deliver. So being clear about expectations and managing your expectations, but not forgetting that you're the one in control, because it's your business. The writing, producing these books, that is your business, because hopefully it's just going to be the thing that's going to sustain you, that's going to be paying all your bills. You want it to be your full-time job. So the quicker you recognize it's a business and that it's your business, it takes a little bit of pressure off. Okay, we've gone well over my half an hour of Ask Me Anything, but I've really enjoyed answering your questions. I hope you've enjoyed our lunchtime session or early morning breakfast session. If you're on the East Coast of the States, if you're on the West Coast, I think you're still asleep. But anyway, I will be back, because as always, I'm going to try and do these. Now that I've finished my book, I'll probably get my proof copy soon. But now that I've finished my book, I'm on my break, and I can replan what I'm going to be doing now at this part of the year. I'm going to do this more regularly. And let me know if there's any other topics also when I do my Substacks, the articles I write. If there's any topics that you want me to take on board. And I'll also be back with my Writer's Verdict podcast, because I have neglected it, because I've been very busy writing books, doing events, recovering from surgeries. So I've kind of neglected my writer's podcast. So I'm going to be getting back on that. And Julie Green, I know you've just joined us, but I'm going to be leaving soon. Unless you've got a question, I can answer. If there's one more question anyone wants to ask, I'd be happy to answer. I can give it until 12:50. I think I'll do that. I'll give it 6 more minutes. So what am I going to be doing for the rest of the summer? I'm just going to be reading. I will be planning my other little plans. I think it's always good to have a plan. It's always good, I think, as a writer, to have an idea of different stories that you want to write. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build up like a folder of story ideas, so I always have something to go to, because things pop into our head randomly. So I'm trying to always make sure I note them down. So I've got a file to go back to and come up with different stories, because you want to make this a full-time career. More stories you have, the better. What else am I going to be doing? That's it, really. Not much. I'm just pleased to have a break. Like, I haven't been in my office since I delivered I did my edits down here, so I haven't been in my office except to upload some podcast stuff. So that's where I've been. And as I said, I've been doing my Behind the Mic series on my Substack. And yeah, that's it, really. Just getting on with it. So if there are no more, I know I said 5 to 10. No, I'm going to stick to my word. 5 minutes. Oh, I've been going cinema. So I watch. Now I feel like this is what I did in my summer holiday segment. I watched Fantastic. I haven't seen Superman yet, much to everyone's surprise, because I'm a big comic book fan. And everyone expects me to have been running down to see Superman at the second they opened the door. But I'm not a James Gunn fan, so I'm going to wait for it to come out on digital download. I'm not in a hurry. But I did watch Fantastic Four, First Steps, which I absolutely loved. I love The Gilded Age. There's only one episode left of that. So I've been catching up on my TV as well. What else have I been watching? Just random stuff. Because also as well, it's always good, as a writer, it's always good to watch TV. It's good to watch movies because you get ideas. Like this is for my new book. So my new book's called A Shadow Carver. It's out on the 26th of February, 2026 in the UK. I think it's out in March in the States and Canada. And when I'm creating like the villains in my book, so the antagonists, I've got a little note on my computer on my desk upstairs, and I've got a note in my notebook saying, "Who is your Darth Vader?" Like, I need my antagonist, I need my villains to be Darth Vader, in the sense that when the reader meets them on the page, the reader has that same feeling that you have when you hear Darth Vader breathe behind you. Like, what the hell? Like, you want that fear. You want your characters to instill fear. So for my villains in book 5, this is not a spoiler, by the way, at all, but in my villains for book 5, I had my villain, but I didn't feel that they instilled enough fear. I'm like, they haven't reached Darth Vader status. I said, you always find these little tricks that you use in your writing. So I mean, I have another post-it note on my desk that says "No risk, no story." I don't know where I got that from. I have no idea where I got that from. And then I think I got another quote. I think it might have come from Dan Brown. He said, "Give the reader what they want in a way they won't see coming." So these are the things I try and keep in mind. But so I had my villain for book 5, The Shadow Carver, but I didn't feel like they weren't villainy enough. They didn't instill enough fear. And then I was watching a series called Lawman Boss Reeves. Is it a Paramount? Yeah, it was on Paramount. And there was a scene in the first episode, maybe the second episode, and I was in Grenada watching this. I'm sitting on the floor and I'm still in my head thinking, what can I give this character? What can I make them when they appear on the page that it's danger? And there was this one scene in Lawman Boss Reeves, and I was like, that's it. And I said it out loud. I was like, that's it. And I saw it was literally like 30 seconds of a scene, and that inspired me, and it gave me what I needed to make my character Darth Vader, or my version of Darth Vader. So like inspiration can hit you in so many different ways, and you can find the answer you're looking for when you're just watching some random program on TV. And it's not stealing. That is not stealing. That's inspiration. It's completely different to plagiarizing people's work. You can be inspired in so many different ways. And something I always used to tell my writing students, the writers I was mentoring, is like, there are no original ideas. There's a book, I can't remember the title of it now, but there's a book that basically says there are only 7 ideas when it comes to writing fiction. There are only 7 ideas, and all we're doing is just putting a new spin on this one of the 7 ideas. So sometimes for a lot of writers, we always feel like, oh my God, I'm not right. This is not new. This is not original. It's been done before. And you're right. It probably has been done before. It's been done many, 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 many times before. I mean, look, my first book, The Jigsaw Man, I've got a detective pursuing a serial killer and it's copycat. How many books have been written where a detective is pursuing a serial killer and a copycat? Maybe not at the same time. Maybe that was what made mine a little bit different, but it's nothing new. So I think once you accept the fact that there are no original ideas and all you're trying to do is put a new spin on it and do something different, it kind of makes it a little bit easier. And always And my one piece of advice is always make sure that your characters are fully formed. Always when I'm creating my characters, especially when I've been creating new characters for this new book that I've been writing, I always have to ask myself, would I sit down with this person and have a cup of tea or meet them in the pub? Do I feel like this person is fully formed? And if I am meeting them, will I want to know more about them? They may not be a good character, may be a bad person, but I still need to know that I still want to know more about them. So my intention is always for my characters to be fully dimensional. I never want them to be flat. So I do put a bit of thought into them, but I never really write character bios. I get bored easily. So my character biography is normally about 5 lines. And then I'm like, okay, I'll learn about them on the page. But always make sure they're fully formed because readers can see through a character that's very flat and a cliche. Okay, I have gone well over my allocated 30 minutes for my Ask Me Anything. Thank you, everyone, to everyone who's joined me. Thank you for all the questions. They are really good questions. And I'm going to try and come back next week. I'm going to do my best. The weeks after that might be a bit difficult because my mum's coming over from Grenada. She's with me for a month, but I'm going to try and keep up these Ask Me Anythings. But in the meantime, I am on Substack. Feel free to send me messages, comment on my pieces, look out for my articles that I write. You can also find, look at my doing my promo. You can also find me on social media. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Instagram, I say Threads with a roll of my eyes. If you're looking for the worst book advice, and normally all the book controversy always seems to be on Threads, but I'm on all these places. I'm not on Twitter X. So if you see me on there, it's not me. All right. It's a scam. But Blue Sky, Substack, obviously, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, that's where you'll find me. And what I think I might be doing, I've got a new thing I want to start writing, something completely different. So if anyone's interested in joining my little writing group, then I might put that forward as well. So you can let me know. All right, I'm going to go. Have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. And again, thank you so much for joining me. Bye. How do I end this? Oh, it's up there. Bye. Oh, also before I go, and if you do join me next time and you actually want to be part of this session of my live, then let me know because I'm more than happy to have a guest on my live too. So that's it. I'm definitely going to go because it's nearly 1 o'clock and I'm hungry. Bye.